Larry. This is Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions. Once again at Nutmeg with our engineer Frank Verderosa. And Paul, I'll just stare at my phone stupidly and not serve any purpose at all. Rayburn.
Colossal Obsessions.
I have a new resolution. I promise to get at least one answer before the end of the episode.
We'll take one.
In the season.
You're becoming quite the character on Facebook and on social media.
Where I've attacked
people
people have no hesitation.
him because you've given them license to.
So one day we'll find you hanging in your apartment. I can go, I did that.
Did you say the name of the show?
Oh, it's Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions.
Possibly.
I said that
All
before.
right, I apologize. We're going to introduce our guest, who's a friend of ours. Danny Deraney is here, a publicist to the stars. And Danny has been a fan of the show from the beginning. He's been a friend of the show. He brought us to the great Ileana Douglas.
Yes.
Who we adore.
Who wanted to fuck Brando when he was 600 pounds.
604.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always fuck that up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And also Joe Dante was the result of Danny's generosity.
Oh, my pleasure.
So he was in town, and he's an obsessive like us. And I said, come in and sit in and watch us insult Paul, and we'll come up with something, and we'll talk about some stuff. And he told me on social media, I've got a Betty Garrett story. I said, oh, that sounds like us.
Now, Betty Garrett was married to Larry Parks.
Yeah.
Very
wasn't
good.
He? Jolson Sings Jolson, where I love Jolson Sings Jolson because he's Al Jolson. At one point, Larry Parks as Al Jolson meets in a split screen.
Surreal.
Larry Parks as Larry Parks.
Right.
Yeah.
And they say, we're going to be doing a movie about you, Mr. Jolson, and you'll be played by Larry Parks. And Larry Parks as Jolson goes, and no one can do the great Jolie. And then he goes, but this is Larry Parks. And he goes, hi, Mr. Jolson.
and watching the Al Jolson story, too, I mean, just seeing when all the singing parts take place and just seeing Al Jolson's voice and like tiny Larry Parks' body, that just breaks me up every time.
And he was ruined by the
blacklist.
Yeah, the blacklist.
Yeah, they really took it. Yeah, it really decimated him. Before we jump into Danny, I just want to do two quick...
Paul, look up the blacklist.
Not the TV show.
Look up the Civil War. See if you find anything.
We didn't have to have that.
we didn't have to have it, so don't worry about it.
Could have prevented that, Andrew Jackson. So here we were talking about "Don't Give Up on Us, Baby" last week because Gilbert was singing, Paul, and we asked the year.
Don't give up on us, baby. Don't make the wrong.
It's like you push a button you can't unpush.
Right. The future isn't just one night. It's written in the moonlight, suspended on the stars. We can't change ours.
Okay, we got the concept.
Okay.
Paul said it was 1976. I looked it up. It was the UK release was 1976. It was, in fact, 1977.
Okay,
so
good.
And in doing research on the song, this is neither here nor there.
I know I lost my head last night. You got a right to stop believing. There's still a little love left. Even so.
Wow, I just swallowed a loose filling. The song was written by Tony McCauley. I bring this up because I did a little research. Tony McCauley wrote 3 of my favorite pop songs. 4. Last Night I Didn't Get to Sleep at All by the Fifth Dimension.
Last night I didn't get to sleep at all.
And Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes.
And love grows where my rosemary goes. And nobody knows like me.
Good enough.
But she smells terrific.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yes.
You're almost on key.
Yes.
And he also wrote Build Me Up Buttercup. So I just wanted to get that out
Why
there.
don't you build me up, Buttercup? Oh, why do you build me up, Buttercup,
foundations.
just to let
That's
me
very
down,
good.
let
Yeah.
me down, and turn me around, and worst of all,
Something.
you never call baby when you say you will, but I love you still, I need you. More than anyone, darling.
I've always loved
you
David
know
Johansen's
that
version of
I
that song,
care
too.
from
Great
the
version.
start. So fill me up, Buttercup, don't break my heart. Dun, dun, dun,
Frank,
dun.
do you have a pillow?
Famously sang at the end by the cast at the end of.
There's something about Mary.
Correct.
I think my favorite thing on Sirius XM, whenever that song comes on the radio, on both of my stereos that I've had Sirius XM, it always ends. There's no cup, so it always says "Build me up, butt."
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, they also he also wrote the other Foundations hit, which was "Baby, Now That I've Found You."
I won't let you
I
go.
can't let you go.
Yeah.
I built my world. I built my world around
I
it.
knew it.
Now that I found you, I can't let you go, let you go.
And even though you won't
Not,
leave
not,
me,
not many people can switch from one tune
He's
to
amazing.
another.
we are.
like
We are.
that.
Actually, let's just switch our careers to the Foundations Historian Society.
We could do that. We could do that. You could have been a vaudeville act, Gilbert the Human Jukebox.
Human jukebox.
Did you ever consider that?
Like a cardboard box so you can't see him in
Oh,
there.
yes.
He's in a box. And the last thing, housekeeping thing, was Don Gordon died. We had been talking about getting Don Gordon.
Oh, my God.
Confusing Don Gordon with John
With John
Saxon. And
Saxon.
Don Gordon from Bullitt and many other wonderful
Oh,
things.
wow.
Died this week, and somebody wrote
Yeah,
me on
and
Facebook.
Don Gordon, he was in a Twilight Zone
Yeah.
episode.
Towering Inferno.
And, he was terrific.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, that's a shame. We'll have to do a tribute episode to
A Don Gordon tribute
Yeah.
episode? Okay.
He was terrific.
Worked in a lot of Steve McQueen stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Danny,
Frank.
tell us how you came into our lives.
You know, as we spoke earlier, I listened to Gilbert speak on Chris Hardwick's podcast, and I heard he was doing this fantastic podcast, where he's celebrating old TV, celebrating old movies. I don't know if he mentioned you. I don't remember.
Probably not.
But for me,
I'm almost certain.
I remember, thinking because,
before I forget.
Yeah.
See, my documentary's out, Gilbert,
Yes.
and the filmmaker,
Neil Berkeley.
Neil Berkeley, is constantly calling Dara up, going, "I heard Gilbert talking about the film again, and he once again said some guy was filming me."
Yeah. He put 2.5 years of his life into it, but why should he take that the wrong way?
In just a little tiny way, I know what he means.
You know what he means. I've given up listening to Gilbert on other podcasts because I know that I'm not going to hear a mention of my name. So I save a lot of time. I get to spend extra time with my wife.
There you
It's
go.
actually helped my marriage.
There you go.
So he was bragging about the show.
Well, no, he was
no
talking
mention
about,
of me.
He was talking. I don't remember if he didn't mention you because it was so new
fine.
at the time, and
That's fine.
I went looking for it. I mean, for me, I've always been someone who celebrates, TV and movies. I mean, you're talking to a guy that I listen to podcasts before I go to bed. 9 times out of 10, it might be an old Jack Benny show or something of that. I mean, it just puts me at ease, and I have radio classics on my dial. I mean, I am a very old soul. I've always been that way.
We like him that way.
And then I started listening to the podcast, and then I realized how much I had in common with the both of you, and it kind of made me feel accepted to my quirks because, for instance, when you guys mentioned Jack Frost, I wanted to cry because
he loves Jack
Oh,
Frost.
yes.
I honestly thought, because I love the Hope and Crosby films. I mean, my dog is named Crosby. I even the horrible 1960s Bob Hope films, even 50s bad Bob
like
Hope
Sorry,
films.
Wrong Number?
Right,
Oh,
Alias,
yeah.
Jesse James,
How did I get a wrong
whatever
number?
it is.
Bachelor in
Bachelor in Paradise with Lana
Paradise.
Turner. It's
And Pardon My Reservation.
oh, that is
Pardon My Reservation.
horrible.
Right.
Boy, did I get a wrong
But
number.
for
I
some
did the title
reason,
wrong.
they give me comfort. Even as bad as they are,
I'll
but it's
take
like
Sweden.
yeah,
Oh, yes,
right.
yes.
And they kind of provide me some weird comfort all the time. And
I'm
so my
sorry.
dad and my mom, they would always have the Bob Hope. I looked forward to the Bob Hope specials. I didn't think about, Brooke Shields is going to be on, or whatever random celebrity of that era that no one's going to care about a year from now is going to be on. I always just looked forward to the bad humor, the monologue, just I thought was the greatest thing. And the Jack Frost one, I mean, you hit it on the head every single time. I mean, it's like Dolores is trying to pull a fast one on him.
She's trying to put life.
Right.
And I'm convinced.
Are you sure about that?
I'm convinced that Dolores, having him stand up there, he may have had a board.
For sure.
That he was nailed to, holding him up. And he was wearing like this beard glued on his chin, a pointed hat. And I'm convinced that this is Dolores' revenge for all the time Bob Hope fucked around.
You guys, and I've told this to Frank before, I can't think of the author off the top of my head, but whoever wrote the Bob Hope book, the huge biography that he interviews his daughters, I mean, it is, I mean, it's a whole can of worms to open up about who you really think Bob Hope is.
Well, he was sleeping around with Marilyn Maxwell all those years.
Mrs. Bob Hope.
Sure,
yeah,
everybody else.
And just the I mean, orgies. Just crazy things.
And I heard like
Bob Hope at an orgy.
That's
Was
it's
Jerry
actually
Colonna there?
there's one in London where he's interviewing his agent or his writers.
Could be disgusting, isn't it?
But to go back to Jack Frost though, I thought that was the funniest thing I ever saw because it's just. You know, the random snippets like, I'm here, I'm over there. And I remembered it till forever. My kids, I showed it to my kids one day because the clip was on YouTube. And, you know, my youngest didn't care, but my older daughter, she just was cracking up incessantly, as was my wife. They've never seen it before.
Yeah.
It's magic.
And if you go to the YouTube now, the page, it says Gilbert
brought
me
me here.
Gilbert brought me here.
Absolutely.
In all the comments.
It's a fever dream.
Yeah, I mean,
and of course, my favorite Bob Hope line in there, where he has about 2 lines.
Yeah.
And it was, "That's me.
Guess who? I'm here. You rang? I think there's a you rang.
Yo, yeah.
And, you know, I would just shake my head because, I mean, that thing was ingrained in my head forever. And I thought I was crazy that no one else would ever remember. Like, if I had a conversation with my friends about this, they would think I'm nuts.
And I heard that Bob Hope, when he'd do those USO tours, he would have, like, the hottest girl of the year, you know, actress
Raquel
or
Welch,
singer.
Connie Stevens, whoever.
Oh, all those, yes. And he'd make them fuck him on the tour.
That I have no idea, but
but boy, fucking Raquel Welch and Connie Stevens.
I mean, if he did, who knows? But I mean, you saw it.
Almost makes you want to go to war.
Yeah. Hey,
there's actually even a great episode of in that book.
Want to suck my dick, Raquel? yeah.
Well, that's all Bob.
No, my favorite clip. You know, I used to work in TV news, and if you've talked to anyone in TV news, one of the things that a lot of interns would have to help do is make obit reels for just in case if someone dies. So I had, I was collecting random Bob Hope reels because this is around, I think, when I first started in TV, which was the late 90s, and I think there was one hoax of Bob Hope dying, and I was putting together random whatever I could find, and they were all fairly recent. And one was him getting some sort of medal from President Clinton, and he's just sitting there, and you just see he's looking at his finger, and he starts going to his head, and he's like trying to get this scab out of his hair.
Jeez.
And then, the best part is the camera's on him and Dolores, and you just see Dolores whack him across the head, telling him to stop.
and I heard Bob Hope, when he was really old, they were having something honoring him at, like, who knows, the Friars or whatever. And everyone was going up making a speech, and Bob Hope, Dolores just kept him there because he was a corpse.
Right.
At that time. And then each one's going up. He was a great humanitarian, a great comic. We loved him, blah, blah, blah. And some idiot, not realizing what it's like, goes, "Speech, speech." And Dolores, you could see, starting to panic. And then it gets the crowd going, "Speech, speech." And then she goes, she takes the mic and goes, "Bob, would you like to say anything to the crowd?" And he goes, "Decaf."
What's like
And the sad part is
sort of
Sherwood
like oil
Schwartz.
can.
And Sherwood Schwartz probably had to write that for him.
Sherwood Schwartz wrote it. Oh my God.
I mean, because he couldn't go anywhere without his writers. I mean, all of his books, and that book goes into detail about how all of his books, he had nothing to do with it.
Well, you think how many of the writers are around? I mean, would Gene Parrott, would he come and talk to us? Do you think? How many of the joke writers are around?
I have no idea, but you need to get that author in here.
Yeah, the
Because
author of the Bob Hope.
The
book.
author of the Bob Hope.
What's the name of the book?
Oh God!
All right, Paul's
It's on my phone.
Paul's
in-
gonna look
in
it
the
up.
studio.
Our
But
researchers-
I'll have it for you
it
next
is
week.
so good. I mean,
Our researchers here.
because his daughter
Linda.
daughter Linda does not. I mean, she is no holds barred. I mean, he was like never.
We got to get his daughter.
never
on.
there for like Christmas. Would rather be at the USO things than
Really?
be
Because
be
I heard
Christmas.
she was the one in the earpiece in the IFB. Huh? Oh yeah, but I heard
The
that
what?
she. I heard she was. It's neither here nor there. She was the one feeding him lines in the
Yeah, she
latter
was feeding
in the
him
latter
lines, but
specials,
in-
the latter day specials.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it goes into that to all the specials that
And
she had
why
to
are
do.
those damn things unavailable? Because I think that the Hope Estate, or possibly her, have scrubbed the internet of any clips. Jack Frost is really not.
I don't know how that
once I
even
found
made
Jack
it.
Frost, I
Yes.
went looking.
Oh,
I said, "Oh,
yes.
this is a gold mine." So let's go.
I don't know how that made it.
So then it was Bob Hope's daughter
Uh-huh.
in the earpiece going, "That's wild,
That's
isn't
wild."
it?"
feeding him the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Joy's? Have you seen Joy's?
I just, I saw it through when you guys first mentioned it. I never heard of it. So I went online to look, and there was a brief clip of it. And then there was a Johnny Carson Bob Hope appearance where he does where he just showed the outtakes, where Don Knotts is in it and he's just kind of clueless.
It makes the whole fucking thing makes no sense
Yeah,
whatsoever.
and then
it's sort of a
Oh,
Jaws
yeah.
parody, but it's about a
And-
murder.
and then I saw
It
the
has
beginning.
Nothing
to do
it
with
has
Jaws.
nothing to do with Jaws, other than it has a J. in
Yeah,
it.
and then I
just
saw
called it
Yeah, yes.
I saw I think the beginning it has like Phil Silvers going to
Right,
Bob
he
Hope's
shows
house,
up at the house.
and I was like, I'm done. I'm
Right.
not. I can't.
I got
Yeah.
Danny. I got.
It's the kind of thing to watch where you think it must have been fun filming those
Right.
scenes, but boy, it is not funny at all.
I mean, nothing they did was funny in that era. Nothing.
No. But
I mean,
why do you think you can't get that stuff on YouTube?
It's
You
just-
just
it's
think
just
the daughter
rights.
just took it down?
I don't know if it's the daughter or it's just whoever owns it
Yeah.
doesn't want to. They want to get paid for it.
If any of our listeners are hear my voice right now, and
I would love to watch all the Bob Hope
any
specials.
of those
Are you in-
later Bob Hope specials in the late '80s, early '90s, even.
I don't even know if there's that many. And then I remember a couple of the not Christmas
Yeah.
ones. What's the one where he had like his football team would come
Well,
out?
they would the college All-Americans.
Thank you.
Would come
Like,
out.
I remember,
Yeah,
like,
then him and
those-
Angelian would come out in fright wigs and they'd and Brooke Shields and he'd come out in drag and he'd have the giant
Angelian.
bazooms. God. Yeah.
Was it a 2014 book, the Bob Hope book called
That's it.
Hope Entertainer
That's it.
of the Century by Richard Zoglin?
So
Richard Zoglin. I know Richard Zoglin's
so
a friend of Rick Newman.
good. So
Yeah,
good.
So
Richard
that's-
Zoglin.
that's-
He wrote comedy on the Edge or comedy.
Yeah,
he wrote a book.
that's right.
Is that it?
Comedy on the Edge.
Comedy
is
on the
right.
Edge.
Comedy
yeah,
at
which I
the
have.
Edge.
Comedy at the Edge. Yeah, we'll have Richard in if he'll come and do it.
Oh,
It's an interesting thing. He says one of the things he was surprised by when he started working on the book that he thought comedians would talk about how much Bob Hope influenced them.
None.
And none of them mentioned him. They mentioned Groucho and they mentioned
Interesting. Well, Woody
know-
Allen gives credit to Bob Hope for influencing him.
well, it's funny if you watch Woody Allen and some of his early movies.
He's kinda-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Love and Death.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he admitted it that he was doing Hope.
he starts doing that kind of, jumping around Bob. It's so weird because there was the early funny movie Bob Hope, where it's kind of like a little effeminate and his eyes would pop out and very energetic and the million ticks.
The Road movie is my favorite.
Yeah,
Blonde,
sure,
brunette,
sure.
whatever.
But
Princess and
there's.
the Pirate.
I remember seeing a road movie, and I guess it was one of their later ones, because it's funny. You could see Bob Hope developing that way of.
That's got to be Road to Hong Kong.
Yeah,
where you're just like
probably.
At the end.
where you're just like, why?
Where
And
he's just
Peter Sellers is great in that movie. That's the only
correct.
saving
Peter
grace.
Sellers turns
Yeah,
up.
you could see him in the movie reading his cue cards and going, "Yeah, this is a wild place to be," and it sounded like any of his later specials.
Right.
Was he starting to lose it, do you think? Or
No, he could do
he's
it,
or
but
he just
he,
for a
didn't
long
care
time.
to
he
do it?
developed that, disgusting Bob Hope that he was in those later specials.
Yeah.
I have to recommend Drew Friedman's strip, Bob Hope's 100th Birthday, which is in his first, which is in his first book.
I will watch
which is
it. I'll check it
I'll
out.
send you a copy
Okay.
of it, which
Sure.
is absolutely wonderful, and was written, I think, 25 years before Bob Hope actually turned 100.
Wow.
The fact that he actually
Now-
made it to 100.
Now, maybe you can help out on
Okay.
this one. I heard both Bob Hope and Bing Crosby hated the Jews.
Gosh, I got it.
Dan?
Let me go back. Let me check my files.
That's not in the book? Why don't we just do a mini episode about famous anti-Semites?
Yes. Well, we could devote one entire episode to John Wayne.
You know, first step, Charles Coburn,
Oh, yes,
Charles
yes.
Coburn.
Walter Brennan.
Did you listen to our Richard Kind episode?
Not yet.
Oh, there's some good stuff
Yes,
about Walter
Eugene
Brennan.
Pallette.
Good stuff about Walter Brennan. So we're going to scrap the idea that we had. To
do it. No, we can stop. We can.
Nah, fuck it. We're having too much fun doing this.
This episode will be actors who hate the Jews.
With Danny Deraney. I'm told you also saved Betty Garrett's life.
I did say Betty Garrett's life. Podcast guests Lee Merriweather and Marvin Kaplan.
I love that
Both-
story.
both podcast
Look at that.
guests.
Two
Podcast
podcast
guests.
guests fold into that story nicely.
My wife worked for a company. She's a social worker, and she worked for a company that Lee Merriweather. I forget how she tied into it, but she worked. Essentially, she just did a lot of work for this company on her behalf. I don't remember why. And Lee actually, outside of most people knowing Catwoman, I think in the theater world, she's really known for, and I think she actually mentioned it on the podcast, for a play called The Spoon River Anthology.
Uh-huh.
And we went to a production of this at Betty Garrett's Theater. If you are in the LA area, it's somewhere located across the street from Universal Studios near the 101 freeway. There's an In-N-Out right next to it. And so we decided to go. And as the play is over, Betty is on, some sort of ladder. And I'm passing her by, and you can see the ladder kind of shaking, and she puts her foot up.
How old is Betty at this
Betty,
point?
I don't know. She died like a couple years later.
Uh-huh.
So
Irene Lorenzo
I don't,
from All
I
in the
don't know.
Family.
And she fell. I mean, she literally fell back and landed right in my arms. And,
jeez.
yeah. I mean, if she fell, she probably could have broken her hip or
That's like a
something.
scene out of those romantic
Yeah.
comedies.
Yeah.
Were you a gentleman?
No, I threw her on the ground immediately.
Did it turn into one of those sitcom stories where then she, because you saved her life, she decided that she had to...
Actually, because I saved her
She
life,
was
she
devoted to you?
blacklisted me.
I love it.
No, but she was actually
What kind of lady was she?
She was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was so, here's this random guy just showing up, coming to the theater and, just me helping her. She was
See,
very
you know
grateful.
what scares me about that, or depresses me, both, is if I was there, I would...
No way you would have caught her.
Yeah, no way
No
in
way.
hell. I would have then, it would have been like, Gilbert Gottfried drops Betty Garrett, and she dies painfully.
It's okay because she died 2 years later.
Cracks her syrup.
She saved,
She what?
letting him drop now actually allowed Betty not to die of a horrible illness 2 years later.
Oh, yes.
This is the most formless mini episode we've ever done.
Yes, that's fine.
Tell us your favorite joke of Gilbert's, because you told
I
us...
can't. I think I want to let Gilbert do the
Oh,
honor.
no, tell us what it is. Which one it is.
There's two jokes that I love dearly. One has been told on the podcast
By Bob Einstein.
Bob Einstein,
Right.
which I haven't laughed that so hard even hearing it
Okay.
a million times. But Gilbert has this fantastic joke, which I think needs to be told
right.
regarding two old men at a park.
All right, Gil, we're going to make you do it.
Okay.
For the listeners.
This is a joke from my DVD, Dirty Joke.
Put a plug in there.
Yes, I might as well. Dirty.
But I saw it for free on HBO.
But you could get it on GilbertGottfried.com.
Okay.
Anyway, two old Jewish men are sitting on a park bench one saying to the other, "Oh, I'm so old, I'm so old. You have no idea how old I am." The other one says, "I bet you I can guess exactly how old." He goes, "You couldn't guess. I can guess exactly how old you are." And he goes, "Here, first of all, stand up." And he slowly stands up, painfully. And he goes, "All right, now I want you to pull your pants down." He goes, "Pull my pants down? I'm in a park." He says, "You want me to guess your age? Pull your pants." So he pulls his pants down. He goes, "Now I want you to pull your underwear down." He goes, "There's people around." He goes, "I don't care. Pull your underwear down." So he pulls his underwear down. He goes, "Now I want you to bend over as far as you can and stick 3 fingers in your asshole." And so he bends over and sticks 3 fingers in his asshole. And the other old Jew goes, "You're 97. And he goes, "That's amazing. How did you guess that?" He goes, "You told me yesterday." Gilbert Gottfried Dirty Jokes. You can get it on gilbertgottfried.com. Yes.
Listening
And
to
you'll
the
be
podcast.
blacklisted too.
Hilarious. We're all blacklisted from this show. Anything you want to plug, Dan?
No, I mean,
Anybody cool that you're working with? Any guests you want to send our way?
I would like to plug Scarlett Johansson.
Well, we
yes,
covered
you would.
that.
Was it a robot or Scarlet or
Yes.
Thanks
Slappy
for-
White?
How funny is Bob Einstein's Slappy White
So
story?
I actually figured out because whenever Gilbert sings it, it makes me laugh. The dummy in the window.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I was listening to a Jack Benny episode.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
And I mean, maybe I'm just a complete idiot. I did not realize that people call dummies mannequins.
Yes.
I did not know that. So now the song makes more sense to me.
Wow, you didn't know that.
I had no clue.
That's the dummy in the window, the mannequin. I didn't know it either.
Yeah.
But I never knew they were called dummies.
Yeah.
And
well, just like ventriloquist dummies.
I didn't realize, but I didn't realize a mannequin in the store. Like my
Or-
grandmother's
or-
never gone, "Look at that dummy."
That's good stuff.
Or
That is so being edited out of this show. Danny, thanks for coming.
My pleasure,
Give our love
guys.
to Ileana.
I will.
And Joe Dante, if you talk to him.
Absolutely.
what was the final flush down the toilet of Gottfried's career? Well,
There were several. You want to take us out?
okay.
Literally.
This has been Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions with my co-host Frank Santopadre and our waste of time, Paul Rayburn.
Thank you, Paul.
And our special guest, Danny Deraney.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you.
Colossal obsession.